Picture the silver tray slipped from Eleanor's trembling hands the moment she heard the words behind the half-open penthouse door. Make sure she never finds out who she really is. Crystal glasses shattered across the polished floor, and the sound echoed through the luxury suite like a gunshot. Every voice inside fell silent. Eleanor froze. Her heart pounded so hard she could barely breathe. She had worked as a hotel maid at the prestigious Ashford Grand for 7 years. Guests ignored her every day. Wealthy people walked past her as if she were invisible. But those words were impossible to ignore. Never finds out who she really is. Before she could gather the broken glass, the door swung open. A tall man with steel-gray eyes stared at her. His tailored suit probably cost more than she earned in 6 months. His expression was calm, but there was something dangerous hiding behind it. "Much did you hear?" he asked quietly. Eleanor shook her head, unable to speak. I wasn't listening." His eyes searched her face as though deciding whether to believe her. For one frightening second, she thought he might drag her into the room. Instead, he stepped aside and allowed another man to leave. The older gentleman gave Eleanor a strange look filled with pity before disappearing down the hallway without saying a word. The billionaire looked back at her. "Clean this up," he said coldly. "Forget everything." He walked away before she could answer. But forgetting would become impossible. If this story keeps you on the edge of your seat, take a moment to subscribe, like this video, and tell everyone in the comments where you're watching from. Stories like this become even more meaningful when people from around the world experience them together. Eleanor knelt to collect the broken glass, but her hands would not stop shaking. She replayed the sentence over and over inside her mind. She had no family left to ask questions. Her parents had died in a car accident when she was 10. She had spent years believing there was nothing mysterious about her past. Now every memory suddenly felt incomplete. Across town, billionaire Daniel Ashford stood inside the top floor of Ashford Industries, looking out over the city he had helped build. His assistant entered carefully. "Sir, the board is waiting." "They can wait. The acquisition has already been delayed twice." Daniel remained silent. His grandfather's final words echoed louder than the city below. "Protect the girl until she is ready." Daniel hated secrets, especially this one. His grandfather had built an empire worth billions, yet the old man had refused to explain why an ordinary hotel maid mattered more than every company they owned. Daniel had promised to honor that wish. He never imagined fate would force Eleanor to overhear the conversation today. That evening, Eleanor sat alone inside her tiny apartment, unable to eat. Every sound from the hallway made her jump. Finally, she opened the small metal box that contained everything her parents had left behind: old photographs, a faded bracelet, several birthday cards, and an envelope she had never noticed before. It had been hidden beneath the lining. Her hands trembled as she unfolded the yellowed paper. Only one sentence appeared. "When the Ashford rose blooms again, trust no one." No signature, no explanation, just those words. Her phone rang, unknown number. She almost ignored it. Something told her not to. "Hello." Silence, then a woman's frightened whisper. "They know you found the letter." The call ended. Eleanor stared at the phone. Her apartment lights suddenly went out. Darkness swallowed the room. A loud knock echoed against the front door. 3 slow knocks, then silence. She backed away. Another knock, this time louder. "Eleanor," called the landlord from outside. Relief flooded through her. She unlocked the door. No one stood there. Only a small black envelope resting on the welcome mat. Inside was a hotel keycard. Room 3107, Ashford Grand. There was no note, no name, only a tiny silver rose engraved on the card. The next morning, she almost threw the keycard away. Instead, curiosity won. She finished her morning shift before taking the employee elevator toward the 31st floor, a level reserved for private guests and executives. The card unlocked room 3107 with a soft click. The suite was empty. Fresh coffee still steamed on the table. Someone had left only minutes earlier. On the desk rested a leather journal. The first page carried a photograph. A young couple smiled while holding a laughing little girl. Eleanor's breath caught. The little girl was wearing the same bracelet hidden in her metal box. She turned the page. A handwritten note covered the paper. "If you're reading this, they failed to keep you hidden." Footsteps echoed in the hallway. Someone was coming. She reached for the journal, but another voice stopped her. "Touch it." Daniel stood in the doorway. "You have no idea what you've just walked into." "You do," Eleanor shot back, surprising even herself. His jaw tightened. "Then I wish I did. Then tell me why strangers keep talking about me like I'm some secret." "I can't." "You won't. They're not the same thing." Before either of them could speak again, a loud explosion rocked the building. The windows shuddered violently. Fire alarms screamed throughout the hotel. Guests began shouting in the hallway. Daniel grabbed Eleanor's wrist. "We have to leave, right now." She pulled away. "No, not until you tell me the truth." He looked directly into her eyes. "The truth is exactly why they're trying to kill you." Before Eleanor could respond, the journal suddenly burst into flames on the desk. Even though no one was close enough to touch it, Daniel's face drained of color. Only one person knew that journal existed. And if that person had found it first, everything they believed about Eleanor's past was about to change. Daniel rushed toward the burning journal without thinking. The flames climbed across the pages unnaturally fast, turning years of hidden history into drifting ash. "No," Eleanor cried. She reached for the desk, but Daniel caught her arm. "Leave it. There has to be something left. There won't be if we're still standing here." Another explosion echoed somewhere below. Smoke crept beneath the suite door as alarms screamed through every corridor. Daniel pulled Eleanor into the hallway, where frightened guests flooded toward the emergency stairs. Hotel staff shouted directions, but panic spread faster than the smoke. Halfway down the stairwell, Eleanor stopped. "My coworkers, they're being evacuated." "How do you know?" "Because I ordered it." She stared at him. "You knew this was coming." Daniel didn't answer. His silence hurt more than any lie. Outside, flashing emergency lights painted the hotel in red and blue. Firefighters raced inside while reporters gathered behind police barriers. Daniel opened the rear door of a black SUV. "Get in." "I'm done following orders. If you stay here, whoever started this will know exactly where you are. If I go with you, they'll follow us instead." The first time since meeting him, Daniel looked frightened, not for himself, for her. Eleanor climbed into the SUV. The vehicle disappeared into traffic just as another section of the hotel erupted in flames. Neither of them noticed the woman watching from across the street. She lowered her camera and smiled. "There she is," she whispered. The Ashford estate sat behind iron gates and ancient oak trees. It looked less like a home than a fortress built to survive generations. As Eleanor stepped inside, she felt strangely familiar with the grand staircase, the marble fireplace, even the stained glass ceiling above the entrance. She frowned. "Never been here." Daniel studied her expression. "I know. Then why does this place feel familiar?" Before he could answer, an elderly housekeeper entered the room carrying a silver tea tray. The moment she saw Eleanor, the tray slipped from her hands. Porcelain shattered across the floor. Tears instantly filled the woman's eyes. It can't be." Daniel quickly helped her to a chair. "Margaret." The old woman couldn't stop staring. "I held her when she was born." Room fell silent. Eleanor's heart skipped. "What did you say?" Margaret covered her mouth as if she had revealed something forbidden. Daniel closed his eyes. Secret wasn't supposed to come out like this. Eleanor stepped closer. "Tell me." Margaret looked to Daniel for permission. He gave the smallest nod. 28 years ago, your mother brought you into this house. She trusted only one man." "Who?" "Daniel's grandfather." Eleanor felt the floor disappear beneath her. "No, it's true. My parents. The people who raised you loved you," Margaret said gently. "But they weren't the ones who brought you into this world." Every memory Eleanor had ever trusted suddenly felt uncertain. If that's true, her voice trembled. "Who am I?" Before anyone answered, the lights went out. Again, a loud crash echoed from somewhere upstairs. Daniel reached inside a nearby drawer and removed a handgun. "Stay behind me," Margaret gasped. "They found us." Heavy footsteps crossed the second floor, then stopped. Silence. A man's voice drifted from the darkness. "Daniel, it's over." Daniel recognized the voice immediately. "No." Eleanor looked at him. "You know him?" Daniel's face hardened. "My cousin." Another silence. Then the man laughed softly. "You really believed grandfather chose you?" A figure stepped into the moonlight. Victor Ashford, perfect suit, perfect smile, cold eyes. "Spent 20 years cleaning up this family's mistakes," Victor said calmly. Daniel raised the gun. "Don't come any closer." Victor ignored him. "Been protecting her because of a bedtime story." "It's not a story." Victor laughed again. "It was never about protecting the girl." Eleanor felt her pulse race. "What does that mean?" Victor looked directly at her. "It means your mother lied to everyone," Daniel shouted. "Listen to him." "But you should," Victor replied. "Because unlike Daniel, I'm actually willing to tell you the truth." He reached into his jacket. Daniel tightened his grip on the gun. Instead of a weapon, Victor pulled out an old photograph. He tossed it onto the marble floor. It slid to Eleanor's feet. She picked it up. The picture showed her mother standing beside Daniel's grandfather. Between them rested a small wooden cradle. Written across the bottom in faded ink were the words, "For the rightful heir." Eleanor looked up. "Heir to what?" Victor smiled. "Everything." Daniel fired, the bullet shattered a nearby mirror. Victor had already disappeared into the darkness. Only his voice echoed through the mansion. "Got 48 hours before the board votes." "What board?" Eleanor asked. Daniel lowered the gun slowly. "Board of Ashford Industries." "Why do they matter to me?" He hesitated. Then he finally spoke the words he had been hiding for years. "Because according to my grandfather's sealed will, if you can prove your identity, you inherit controlling ownership of the entire Ashford empire." Room went completely still. If this revelation has you emotionally invested, let me know in the comments what you think is really happening, and don't forget to like the video if this story is keeping you guessing. Eleanor shook her head. "This has to be some kind of mistake." "I wish it were. Spent years cleaning hotel rooms." "I know." "Worried about rent." "I know. Never even owned a new car." Daniel's voice softened. "And yet one signature could make you one of the wealthiest women in America." "Why me?" Daniel looked toward the portrait of his late grandfather hanging above the fireplace. That's the one question he took to his grave. A soft beep interrupted them. Daniel checked his phone. His expression turned pale. "What is it?" Eleanor asked. "The security system." "What about it?" "It didn't detect Victor leaving." She frowned. "What does that mean?" Daniel slowly turned toward the hallway leading deeper into the mansion. "It means..." A floorboard creaked behind them. "He's still inside the house." If you're enjoying stories filled with suspense, emotional twists, and billionaire secrets that change everything, subscribe now so you don't miss what happens next. A shadow moved at the end of the hallway, then a second one, then a third. Daniel realized Victor had never come alone. And hidden somewhere inside the mansion was one final piece of evidence that could either prove Eleanor's identity or erase it forever. The first masked intruder stepped into the light with a crowbar in his hand. Daniel reacted instantly. "Run." He shoved Eleanor toward a narrow hallway hidden behind the grand staircase, while the mansion echoed with breaking glass and shouting. Margaret pressed a trembling hand against a carved wooden panel, revealing a concealed passage that disappeared into darkness. "This way," she whispered. "Your mother used it once before." Eleanor froze. "My mother knew about this place." "There isn't time." Daniel blocked the entrance with a heavy cabinet as the men forced their way into the hall. The old passage smelled of cedar and dust. Portraits and forgotten trunks lined the narrow corridor until it ended at a small circular room hidden behind the mansion's library. In the center stood an antique safe. Margaret's eyes filled with tears. "I prayed no one would ever need to open this." Daniel examined the safe. Instead of a combination lock, there was a silver rose. "Bracelet," he said. Eleanor stared at the bracelet she had worn since childhood. "One my parents left me," Margaret nodded. "It was never just a keepsake." With trembling fingers, Eleanor removed the bracelet and placed it into the rose-shaped slot. A loud click echoed through the room. The safe slowly opened. Inside rested a sealed envelope, a birth certificate, and a leather-bound journal untouched by the fire. Daniel carefully unfolded the first document. His face went pale. So my grandfather was telling the truth. Eleanor reached for the birth certificate. Her hands shook so badly she could barely hold it. The names were unfamiliar, not the couple who had lovingly raised her. Her biological mother was Victoria Hale, her biological father. The page blurred as tears filled her eyes. "There's no father's name." "There never was," Margaret whispered. Daniel opened the sealed envelope. It contained a handwritten letter from his grandfather. He read aloud. "If Eleanor is reading this, then my greatest fear has come to pass. She was never hidden because she wanted wealth. She was hidden because someone wanted her dead." Eleanor felt her knees weaken. Daniel continued. "Victoria discovered that several members of our own family planned to seize Ashford Industries through fraud. She gathered proof. Before she could expose them, she disappeared." Margaret quietly added, "She didn't disappear." Eleanor looked at her. "They murdered her." Silence swallowed the room. Daniel turned another page. His grandfather had attached signed legal documents. "They transferred controlling ownership into a protected trust," he said quietly. Eleanor asked, "My grandfather and your mother." She stared at him. "So, she trusted your family?" "No," Daniel folded the letter carefully. "She trusted one man." He looked at his grandfather's signature. "My grandfather spent the rest of his life trying to keep that promise." Just then, a loud crash shook the hidden room. The cabinet blocking the passage had fallen. "Here," Daniel said. Victor's voice echoed through the tunnel. "Always been too sentimental, Daniel." The hidden door burst open. Victor entered alone, holding a pistol. He smiled as though greeting old friends. "It's over." Daniel stepped in front of Eleanor. It ends tonight. Victor laughed. No, he pointed the gun directly at Eleanor. It ended 28 years ago. Eleanor looked straight into his eyes. Why? Victor's smile disappeared. Because my father spent his life believing he would inherit this empire. Then your mother arrived with documents proving she controlled everything. So you killed her. My father did. The confession hung in the air. Victor didn't seem ashamed. One decision destroyed 3 generations of my family. I simply finished what he started. Daniel lowered his voice. It doesn't have to end like this. It already has. Victor tightened his finger on the trigger, then Eleanor spoke. Spent your whole life chasing money. Victor frowned, and my parents, the ones who raised me, left this world with almost nothing. She wiped away a tear. But they taught me something your family never learned. Victor laughed bitterly. What's that? Money decides how people live. She looked directly at him. It never decides who they become. The first time Victor hesitated, that single heartbeat was enough. Daniel lunged. The gun fired. The deafening shot echoed through the passage. Eleanor screamed. Victor stumbled backward as police officers rushed into the hidden room from the opposite entrance. Drop the weapon. Margaret had quietly triggered the mansion's silent alarm minutes earlier. Victor tried to run. He never made it. Handcuffs clicked around his wrists. As officers led him away, he looked back at Eleanor. You think you've won? She didn't answer. He smiled one last time. This fortune will cost you everything. Weeks later, the courtroom was filled with reporters, employees, and shareholders. The evidence hidden inside the safe exposed decades of fraud. Victor and the remaining conspirators were convicted. The board honored the legal trust exactly as Daniel's grandfather intended. Eleanor became the majority owner of Ashford Industries. The announcement stunned the business world. But the biggest surprise came after the ceremony. Daniel found Eleanor standing alone outside the courthouse. You could have celebrated with everyone. She smiled gently. Had enough attention for one lifetime. He laughed softly. There is one more decision. She raised an eyebrow. What decision? Daniel handed her a folder. Inside was the deed to the old neighborhood where she had grown up. Company can build another luxury development. She looked at him. Or we rebuild the schools, affordable homes, and community center your parents always dreamed of. Tears filled her eyes. My parents would have chosen the second. I knew you would too. Months later, the ribbon was cut on the first community project funded by Ashford Industries under Eleanor's leadership. The luxury hotel, where she once cleaned rooms, introduced scholarships for employees' children. No one was invisible anymore. Margaret retired peacefully, finally free from the burden she had carried for nearly 3 decades. Daniel remained by Eleanor's side, not because of an inheritance or an obligation, but because somewhere between secrets, danger, and heartbreak, respect had quietly become love. Neither of them rushed it. They built it the same way trust is built, one honest choice at a time. If this story touched your heart, subscribe for more unforgettable billionaire romance stories, share this video with someone who loves emotional twists, and tell us in the comments. What was the biggest lesson you learned from Eleanor's journey? Years later, a young employee nervously apologized after dropping a tray in front of Eleanor during a company banquet. Instead of walking past, Eleanor knelt to help gather the broken pieces. She smiled and said, "People should never be judged by the uniform they wear. The greatest treasure in any room may be the person everyone else overlooks." Some fortunes are measured in dollars.